Brilliance Audio presents Handle with Care by Nina Croft. Performed by C.J. Bloom. Chapter 1. Was she crazy? Mimi Delaney paused, her hand half raised to open the door to O'Connor's motorcycles. At the last moment, she was having a crisis of conscience. Mimi was quite aware that through her long life, she'd be 70 in a couple of weeks' time. A lot of people had considered her crazy, but for the first time, she suspected they might be right. She reminded herself that she was doing this for Emily, the sweetest granddaughter a woman could want. Taking a deep breath, she pushed open the door to the motorcycle shop. And really, this was just a reconnoitering mission. If the boy was truly as bad as everyone said, though honestly no one could be as bad as they said Tanner O'Connor was, then she'd walk away, no harm done, and find another way to bring a little adventure into her granddaughter's life. The garage and shop were in the center of town, prime real estate. Rumor had it the O'Connor boys had bought it with a payout from their daddy dying in some sort of industrial accident while working in a factory in Virginia Beach. Others were sure it was bought from ill-gotten gains, drugs or prostitution, or worse. The money must have come from somewhere. The family had been dirt poor. The door opened into a showroom, empty but for a single motorcycle on a podium in the center. She approached it cautiously, as she would an unknown stallion. It was huge, but the seat was quite low, so she could probably touch the ground. The women in her family had always been known for being tall, except poor Emily, who was knee-high to a flea, probably from her father's side. She walked around the monster machine, then reached out a hand and stroked a finger over the black and silver metal. "Can I help you?" The voice almost made her jump, but she was made of sterner stuff. She composed herself and turned around, and blew out her breath. This was her prey. But she was already having second thoughts. Dressed in faded jeans and a sleeveless white tank, he was big and muscular and exuded an air of danger. Now she was being fanciful. He was also quite the most beautiful thing she had ever seen. Something twisted inside her. Mimi hadn't had a man in 30 years, not since her husband had inconveniently died on her just before her 40th birthday. She'd never thought much about sex at that time. But standing in front of this beautiful man, she felt every one of her 70 years, and a sense of melancholy and regret washed over her as she realized that she might never again feel a man's touch. That part of her life was over. Finished. As she remained silent, his gaze wandered over her, one eyebrow raised, and she gathered her thoughts. The idea had come to her last Sunday. She'd been walking back to the truck with Emily after lunch in town, when a low growling roar had approached from behind. They'd turned together as a huge dark red motorcycle had cruised past them, and she'd caught a look in Emily's eyes. Longing. Who would have thought her sweet granddaughter would have the hots for a tattooed ex-con who rode a Harley? Of course, Emily would never do anything about it. She was far too sensible and had never put a foot wrong. Mimi should be pleased about that, because the boy was trouble, but seriously gorgeous trouble. If she was 50 years younger. He cleared his throat. Time to move on. "Mr. O'Connor?" Of course she knew who he was. Everyone knew Tanner O'Connor, but her brain had turned to mush. Yeah, he'd obviously been working. Wiping his hands on a stained cloth, his body language screamed impatience. "As I said, can I help you?" His tone suggested he found it highly unlikely. Like her, his dark blonde hair was pulled back in a ponytail. The lower half of his face was covered by a short blonde beard. His eyes were silver gray, and his cheekbones sharp. He was 26, but looked older, with a hardness to his features. Probably a...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?